Well, hello. Good evening, everyone. It's September 21st, Monday, September 21st, and welcome to another episode of the Check Drop. This is episode 15, COVID 15. Here we go. We're going to go ahead and get started. We're going to jump right in. I got an amazing guest this evening. He's best known as the season 10 runner-up, I believe, on America's Got Talent from NBC. Please welcome to the Check Drop, Mr. Drew Lynch.
Thank you.
What's up, Drew?
Hey, buddy.
How are you,
Thanks
sir?
for having me. I was living the dream, man.
I can see the excitement in your face.
Yeah, you see it?
So people that are watching, Drew and I, we got a little bit of history in the NACA world. So Drew I would say, kind of got some stripes, some comedy stripes, working the college market. You kind of learned a lot from that, I assume, and how to do your jokes on the road and travel.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. I like the NACA is like its own bubble. I don't know how much you've talked about that on here. I'm sure,
and not a whole lot, but I mean, this is your show too, man. So just I'd love to hear all about your comedy woes and.
That's my comedy woes. Oh man, we only have an hour. Yeah, it's crazy. The Summit booth was one that was like revered. I remember that. Like you guys always had like a booth that was like banging. You know, when I first started, it was like I think I was I would go to NACA with my manager at the time, and then there's no experience like it. Like you would do NACA is like a college. It's where colleges go to like book entertainment that they want to have for the year. So as an entertainer, that's where you go to whore your soul, and for $900 and plus travel, and I remember Summit being just like, oh, that was like that was like the comedy roster. You know what I mean? Like there was just so many people that you guys always there were so many people that were in the booth, and then you guys had a number of agents that were like tag teaming the whole situation. So you guys had a full blown operation. Meanwhile, like we had papers and tape and shit to put our booth together, and it's such a weird it's a weird way to try and break into like what comedy.
Well, I appreciate the plug and the the good words, whatever. So I've been doing it for a long time, 22 years now. So I figured out a few I figured out all the bumps in the road, I guess, and kind of, ironed them out as best as possible to make this work. And then once you get it all figured out, COVID-19 pops its head.
That's right.
There's that.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and you get to a point where, you can't do your job, which is weird. So,
yeah.
My one of my go-to lines to my kids, and I've said this on the podcast, is expect the unexpected. And I tell that to my kids all the time, just to kind of prep them for the world, and make sure you have enough money in the bank and all that stuff. And then when your oldest child goes, expect the unexpected, Dad, and throws it back in your face, it's a joy.
I'm sure it hurts.
So you were with Barbara Holiday, who was your manager and agent, I guess, at the time.
Yes,
during that whole. Yeah. I always thought it was funny that Barbara always had a lot of comedians that she was always looking for that I guess that hook. And not to say that your comedy is a hook, but she had Samuel Comroe, who had the Tourette's, and you had your stutter, and she had Josh Blue at one time had cerebral palsy. So I was kind of just poke the bear and to laugh at her and say,
and like she's to her credit, she's got like she runs kind of like she runs kind of a college marketing class, and so they are really good about I guess kind of developing what it is that you that you can have that, I guess, brands you, and not that that's for any reason for why you should target comedy as something to do. But if there is something that is, I guess, particularly unique, then now that's something that, and especially if it has something that comes from a level of diversity, if there's like a diverse element or even adversity to it, then that can work in for not just the college market, but like you think about it now, like there's so many people who, like even like Bert Kreischer was telling me like that so many people like just love the fact that he's got like he performs shirtless, and he's got like he's just got no shirt, and that's how that's how he kind of marketed it, his last even the billboards that I had seen, and it's
definitely a marketable quality, just something so different from like, hey, who's that comedian that's has no shirt on? So to stand out in a sea of comedians, I mean, that's kind of brilliant. That worked out for him that way. So,
I mean, Bert's a great storyteller, and he's a funny guy too. But it's interesting how like I was talking about this with my girlfriend, and I feel like I've had a lot of progress with my speech over the years, and it used to be a thing that I would joke a lot about, and then I never wanted it to be seen as like a crutch or the thing that was I would be most known for. I always wanted to be about the work, so I kind of I just moved my focus of like it's still something that to be addressed, and it's still definitely part of my past and my journey, and there's a lot of positives I think that came from the injury that had forced me to even start comedy in the first place. But at the same time, you sometimes can change with this kind of love-hate affinity for what it is that someone might even know you for, and that can extend to bodies of work too. Sometimes people can be like, hey, I saw you on this, I saw you on Disney when you were 19, and you're like, oh, please don't, please, like please don't say that, So there's a lot of things that can creep up on you from your past.
Yeah. Well, since you brought it up, I was going to do it later on in the show, but so tell the world your story. I mean, I believe you had just started stand up, or you were like a doorman at Flappers or something, and then tell your injury story, I guess, basically how you became like into and with your stutter.
Chuck's like, how did you break? How did it happen? What's your IPO? I was working at a comedy club where I was the doorman, and I did not relish the lifestyle of comics. Like I spent a lot of time being I guess around a lot of them, and a lot of them were friends of mine, but it wasn't like something that I wanted to pursue. I was more interested in pursuing acting, and I thought that it was like the perfect night job, so I could have my days free to audition and not get called back and stuff like that. And they had a softball team, and I joined the softball team, and I was playing shortstop on one of the games, and someone fucking smacked the ball right towards me, and I had taken a grounder to the throat that I didn't field so badly, but I also didn't think it was gonna I didn't think it was a huge deal, but when I had fallen, I had hit my head on the ground, and the way everybody at Flappers tells me is that I was acting super weird after that. Like they put me on the bench, and like I don't remember much of that day. All I remember was they said that I had to work like later that day, and so I went into work, and they said that I was acting weird then, so they sent me home, and I guess that whole time I had a concussion, and I went home, and then I went to sleep on the concussion. I woke up the next day and my speech was all messed up. My motor skills weren't working properly. And
when was the first time you knew you were kind of came to? Because you said you didn't remember the actual incident. What was the first time you kind of remember?
I remember, like, I have like little still images that I can remember of. Like, I remember, I weirdly remember being on the bench. I weirdly remember some guy who was not he was like league mandated to be there, who might have been like medical, and he I think he asked and how I was, and I remember my roommate. I remember my roommate was the one to tell my parents that something was weird, and then he took me to the hospital. And yeah, man, the whole thing was just like such a blur. And it wasn't. The only thing that was really freaking me out was the way everyone else was reacting. I wasn't like, it was like, it was definitely strange, but it wasn't like one of those things that hit, and it doesn't really register until just so much later. Like,
yeah,
especially after they given me the recovery time of 2 weeks. Just give it 2 weeks, and you should be better. And by the way, over the years I've certainly improved, but at that time it was just it was so much more pronounced, and it's been almost 10 years since that happened. And that was when my representation on the acting side of things wasn't as interested, because how are they going to market or get someone in the door who you couldn't really get through the lines or anything. And
right.
So
was the stutter evident the very next morning? Like, you woke up and you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah, that was yeah, and that's what that's what they had told, like my roommate had told me. And I was in the hospital for a few days, and I remember feeling like never like I was gonna like tell it on stage, but just remember feeling like I'll write down everything that's happening, so I can tell it to someone, because this is a freak thing, and whenever this is over, I want to be able to remember what it is that I can remember. And then stand up just kind of became the outlet, which was really which had a cool way of unearthing itself, because comics are already like a bunch of misfits, and I never really saw myself as, I guess I had always seen myself as just there. That was like in the periphery, never really like the focus. And then when
working at Flappers, I guess it was kind of, by osmosis, right? The next thing, just to kind of fall right into it, right?
Yeah, it was just having some encouragement from a lot of the guys who hung around there to do it. And I think I remember my first mic that I went on stage to talk about it.
What was the timeline on that? How long after the accident?
I think it was, well, my first show was like 2 months after that, or like 2 months after. Like, first show was like 2 months after that. But the first time I did like a mic was like maybe a month after the injury, maybe a little bit more than a month after the injury. Okay. And I remember it was just like just a mic that was there, and it wasn't like it was anything spectacular. It was just, I feel like, me going and talking about the injury, and talking about working the door, and how frustrating that was. And while things were very while things weren't as necessarily hitting, like, oh my goodness, this is just so polished, this is the best, it was still, I think, evident to a lot of the comics that were in the audience that I was going through something. And I think there was a lot of empathy that was put forth on their part, just because it was very present in the room how emotional I feel like I was, and how vulnerable I feel like I was being, just because I was very embarrassed by it. I didn't know how it was going to go, and it ended up being a blessing, because not only did it lead to some other opportunities that, combined with, kind of working my ass off to try to make that happen, but in a really unique way, it kind of teaches you joke structure, or at the very least to like trim everything off of the joke that you don't really need, so you can have a sense of brevity to the joke. So.
Nice. So how did that transfer into, like, say you going in the college market? Was that Sam Comro kind of pulling you under his wing? Because I mean, my first thought is you doing that little mic that's lines the bar right behind Flappers, and I can see you getting up there, and then I can see Barb going, "Oh my gosh, I got another one! I got another hook comedian."
Yeah, I mean, it was the whole, like, I mean, Barb was kind of, a little standoffish to it, because I was her employee first, not really her client. So I was an excellent doorman, with the exception of, talking to people and doing my job.
How long were you a doorman before that happened?
A year.
Okay.
Yeah. And then Barb, she kind of goes full full ham when she finds something that she wants to do. And then I think I had submitted for the college market the first time, and I didn't get anything back. And then I changed the video, and somehow that fall, I think I ended up getting some auditions, some NACA auditions, I think, for like the Northeast and then the West. And then I think shortly after that was when Bo Burnham found my very first show, like the show that I was telling you about that I did like 2 months later. Bo tweeted that out, and then I got to go like do a run with him and open for him on the road, and that was just like an experience unlike any other. And actually, nice. He and I, one of the shows that we did was the Vic in Chicago, and the Vic was the last show I got to do before that I sold, and that was the last show I did before COVID. So it was really kind of a nice little send off before the end of
for your break,
live entertainment. Yeah,
before your comedy break.
Yes, yeah. So that was kind of an interesting trajectory.
When you submitted to NACA so young in your career, I mean, how much time did you have at that time? Like,
boy,
because you didn't have an hour, obviously. I mean.
No.
Do you feel that you were premature in submitting to that realm and jumping into that market before you were ready?
I feel like you're projecting right now, Chuck, and it hurts.
Maybe a little.
Like,
I mean,
you think you're ready now? Yeah.
I have a spotlight on everybody. I ask my questions. So.
Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely, I had, I don't know, maybe 20 minutes. That was maybe 20 minutes or 30 minutes in that first year. And again, like, I'm talking at such a different wavelength of speed. So it's not even like it could count as whatever an actual 20 minutes is. So who even knows what that is? I don't even know the math on that. I don't know the conversion of stutter 5 minutes to an hour and 10. I don't know what it is.
Yeah. Well, I'll rephrase the question then. All right, so you got your first NACA showcase. You, I assumed, did great in your 10-minute showcase, and then was booked to go to said colleges. How did that first one go? When colleges, typically, it's just you. It's not an MC feature headliner.
Yeah.
It's just you going in, typically doing 50 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
How did that first one go? Did you have to do an hour? Did you rise to the occasion? Did you bring somebody with you to fill the time?
So I did it just by myself, and I remember the college. It was in Hartford, Connecticut. It was in Hartford, and I remember what I would do is I would write jokes about, like, I would look up the school. I would look up the school's history. I would look up things about the area, and then night before on the plane ride leading up to everything, I would write 10-15 minutes just about the area, and so that would help kind of supplement that additional to getting to that 45, and then that compounded with some interactive moments that can happen, because there's sometimes, like, they're college students, so when I was as young as I was at that time, there's also like a bit of familiarity in terms of our demographics, so it didn't feel like it wasn't necessarily totally unrelatable, but
how old were you when you went to NACA your first time?
Oh man, 21.
Okay, yeah, so you're right there in the pocket with him. So
yeah, so and I remember it was actually kind of a beautiful moment, because I don't even remember how it went. I don't think it went great. I don't think it went bad. But I do remember one of the jokes that I found out was that the college I was performing at, the guy who invented basketball went there, and I ended up writing something where, like, I was like, I wonder how he came up with it. Like, he was just writing ideas. He's like, no, that's not good. And then he threw it, and then or whatever. And like a silly little thing and now I close with that everywhere I go. It's easily my best joke. It was one of those things. It was one of those things where, like, I was just like, oh, I could maybe make this work. So I agree that it was like premature, but it's also one of those things where when an opportunity happens, you have to kind of condition yourself to rise to that occasion, rather than just like being like, you got to work as hard as you can.
Trial by fire, right? I mean, especially if it's a profitable business to be in that college market. So yeah, if you can get your foot in the door and do just that, and it's funny that you say that, because next week we have Jessie Campbell on on the podcast, and she's been on my college roster for a long time. And the very first time, like I met her, I was like, hey, do you have an hour? I need you to do an hour. She's like, yeah, absolutely, got an hour. And she did not have an hour, but that's just the thing. The whole rising to the occasion. She knew that when she got submitted for the showcase, she still had 6-9 months before that first college, because usually they book that far in advance, So yeah.
Yeah, and it's like it's also like I worked so hard. Like, I worked like every day because I worked at the comedy club at night, and then every day I woke up at I think it was like I woke up at 8 a.m. and I went to a coffee shop, and then after the coffee shop was like, hey, like, you can't be here, then I would get like, I didn't have much money, but I bought like a thing, and I was there for a long time. And then when that kind of like, when I felt like that didn't have any, I couldn't come up with any more ideas there, I would like go to like a cigar bar or something about cigar bars. Like, I wouldn't even smoke, but something about it just makes me feel very productive. So then I would spend 4 hours, 6 hours almost every day and then I would go right from there to working, and then trying whatever it was at the mics that were there. So it was a nice little starting ground for where I was able to get up to doing longer shows.
Gotcha. So when did that pivot into working with Sam? Because you guys, Sam Comro, you and I did, he did a lot of colleges together. You, I don't know who branded the phrase preferred parking comedy tour, but that was really huge in the college.
I think that was our manager.
Yeah. Because that was huge in the college market. I mean, you check the boxes. Although I just thought it was the funniest thing that neither one of your disabilities that you got preferred parking with.
But it was
just the whole concept when you had the logo with the little handicap sticker. But like, yeah, it it was very huge in the college market. I was a little jealous when I was
Oh
like,
yeah,
oh, that's something I can get behind. So
that's fun. Yeah, it was cool. We got to do like a nationals that way, and nationals is like such a big thing. Like that's where everybody goes for the showcases.
yeah.
And I remember that was where we met. Like, oh, I think her name is Mary Lambert. She had that song with like Macklemore at the time, and then there were
Yes.
like yeah, like she was
I
on the
was
roster.
I was backstage with you and Sam and her, and
Yeah,
yeah, we're all just hanging out that particular day as well. I remember that.
yeah, yeah. And so I thought that that was like such a cool thing. But like even showcases, and it's also such a weird thing because everyone's rate, like for what they make, is just public, not like it's public knowledge. It's so crazy. I mean, it's unlike. I mean, the only thing I guess I could equate it to on such a smaller scale is that um, like when you look up salaries of like athletes and you're like, wow, that's $1 million, for whatever it is they
Right.
do. Like it's crazy to think. Like I remember seeing like some of the other comedians who were on the roster, and like their rate was like 15K or like 17K for like one gig or whatever. And
Yeah.
I remember just feeling like that's something to really strive for. And a lot of that is supplemented by whatever credits that they're doing on
Right.
the comedy scene elsewise. So and also, as you've seen, like we were talking about just before we kind of started the podcast, was like the showcases are so weird because you never know who you're going in front of or behind. And I remember, I think one of our worst sets was we had to go up after like a slam poet, and she was amazing. She was so good, but everything she was talking about was just so heavy, and like it was
Yeah.
so heavy. She was and we had to go up afterwards, and it was just like, right,
Timing is everything.
yeah, and so yeah, so that was something that was I guess your introduction, and then like your world kind of grows from the college market. Like you can only do I remember feeling like, oh, I want to get the most colleges, or I want to get to a point where the rate can get up, and then it's its own little community, and then you've got like clubs as well, and clubs is a whole different beast. I don't know if you're repping people who are running clubs as well, I'm sure, right?
Yeah. Right.
Yeah. And those deals sometimes they're a little bit different than colleges because they are they're based on attendance, and they're based on sales. So
Right. Yeah. It's a whole unique market. I mean, even you just mentioned like the price tags and such, and I mean, yeah. I mean, people that are listening and are watching, you literally go into a conference and everybody's looking at a trade show, I guess, sheet with all the prices listed right there in front of them.
yeah,
So Drew's right. You can look at a comedian that might be $20,000, but eat shit in their showcase, and then another comedian just go in for $1,000 and murder and get like
yeah,
100 dates out of it. So
yeah,
I mean, those conferences I've seen like just totally like make people. I mean, I had
yeah,
Christella Alonso on here a couple months ago, and she absolutely knows that NACA put her on the. It saved her life. She said. I mean,
yeah,
she's like, I went out and made a couple $100,000 in 1 year. I had 2 nickels to my name, and she went to the NACA National in Charlotte and got 100 plus dates, and she cried. She was like,
yeah.
I don't know what to do with all this money, and like it's a dream come true.
I
So
remember that. I remember that too. That was that was before she had gotten her show and specials and everything. And
right,
she cleaned house, and she's like she's a very powerhouse of a performer. So that combined with the fact that she's got a very interesting background. And like I remember her coming up with like when because they have it listed as well. They also have how many dates that you've got, because that's
Right.
the way that other colleges can route you and
Right.
get
So
get
there's a
that.
block booking board. So every talent or
Yeah.
student or agent can all go there and either be happy or sad.
Or devastated, yeah.
Yeah.
And so yeah, that's great. I mean, that's great too. Christella's a great example. She was someone who, yeah, and consistently at the showcases from what I remember. And I just remember, like, at that time, the world of clubs, it didn't even, it, like, only being on both sides now, like, am I really able to see just the differences and the pluses and minuses of both.
Yeah. Were you doing many clubs during that time, or were you just kind of leaning more on either working when you were home and then doing colleges?
Yeah, it was mostly colleges that supplement. Like, I remember budgeting. This is the way I had to do it. Was I was just like, I have to be able to average a college a month in order to just like sustain. And in the meantime, what I would end up doing is I would call clubs that were in the area, like if they were within an hour or 2 hours, and I would pay to stay an extra night after the college and see if I could go do like a guest spot. And that sometimes was a credit that you could carry, was just like, oh, he's doing a college in the area, let him do 5 minutes. And
Yeah.
um
A lot of comics did that. That was a great, springboard into just that. Like, hey, well, this got me the money that I can, be here for the, compensate for that week. So
yeah. And so what you would end up balancing it is, like I said, if I ended up doing a college a month, that could help. But if I did, like, if I got lucky and I could do like 2 or more colleges a month, then I could take on a feature date where I would just go and feature at wherever club that I could maybe get booked at based on the guest set. And I would lose money on those gigs because feature sets are $100 a set if you're lucky, and then they sometimes will supply a condo or a hotel. So for what it costs to go do the gig, it's just you're weighing the cost benefit there. Where you're just like, I want time, I want the relationship with the club so I can eventually headline here, and then you'll take the loss for the expenses. So
nice. Well, let's pivot a bit. I really want to hear the story from start to finish as far as America's Got Talent. I mean, because that was a huge bump in your career. I mean, it puts you on the map. I mean, I see people in the chat here that, talking about the golden buzzer and such. Walk everybody through the process of auditioning. Did you have to audition, or did you get a fast pass? I'd love to hear your story on that.
Absolutely. I auditioned a year before I auditioned when I got on. So I auditioned twice. And one of the years I auditioned and I got nothing. I think that was 2014. And so I didn't get anything. And then in 2015, I remember it very vividly because the audition was held in LA and it was the day after Valentine's Day. So I was hungover. I remember that, and I don't rage by any means, but it was just whatever. You're out with your girlfriend, and we had champagne, and and I remember waking up at I think it was something absurd, 5 a.m. or 4:30 a.m. and I went to the auditions, and I got there at like 6 or 7. The sun was not even up. And there was already like 100 people. And so then I went and I auditioned and went for, like, I was lucky enough to get seen, but I don't even think I was seen before noon. Maybe before noon.
And this is just the cattle call thing?
Yeah, this is just the cattle call. And it's a very, I don't know how they do it now, but it is a very weird process because they group you with a group of maybe 10 to 15 other performers, of not just other comedians, it's other performers. And the person you're auditioning for is like perpendicular to you. You're not supposed to audition for them, like
Okay.
as they say. You're supposed to audition for the people who are also auditioning. So it is the weirdest. Like they become like your audience, even though they're also your competitors. It's
And
the
this is just in front of like a production assistant, or
yeah,
obviously,
yeah,
okay.
someone who is, they're a producer on the show, and I remember my audition, and like when you're in holding just before the audition, everyone is kind of doing their talent. So whatever it is that they're practicing it. They're
Juggling,
if you're a juggler, or if you're a dancer, or if
flame
you're
throwing, yeah.
whatever it is your thing, they're all practicing. So as a comedian, like you're just kind of there. You're just kind of hoping that like whatever you say can really wow them and you can get somewhere. And my audition was not going well. You're supposed to audition for I think a minute, and I think for the first 40 seconds of it, it's not like they're not laughing because they don't want you. I don't think they want you to succeed, but the producer was. So I just kind of addressed that, and I ended up just like turning to audition directly for the producer, because I think I just, by calling it like what it was, I was like, well, this isn't going well for us, so I think I'm gonna change out whatever audiences, or I'm gonna move,
Yeah.
and
Did you
and
pull
I
an
think
audible and change the material, or did you stick to
yeah,
what you were planning on
yeah,
doing? Okay.
I changed
Okay.
the material as well, because I think the material almost became secondary to how funny the moment was. And then I think at the same time there was a girl in the next room who was like belting like opera, and then I started kind of riffing on that, and then that became funny to the producers and to the producer. And then she said thanks, and then the security guard was like, all right, she'll let you know if they want to call you. Everybody go home. And of course, as you know, that means no. So I kind of left, and then the guy he snuck up behind me, and he was like, hey, but you were great. She wants to see you. Like he like whispered it. It was such a weird. It was like, hey, but you stay. I was like, all right, we're gonna tickle? It was so funny. And then she had me come back in, just her and I by myself, and she just kind of talked to me about my story. And then she passed me along to another room where I auditioned, and then they passed me along to another room where I had to fill out paperwork on my backstory and sign some release forms. And then I think after that room, they send you to the 9 producers who are all, they all have their laptops up, and they're really trying to figure out how they're going to cast the season and who they want. And it was kind of the same thing. It was just like,
Now, do you feel? Sorry to interrupt, but do you feel that your backstory really kind of propelled you into that next status, like moving up that ladder? Because everybody always says like, hey, man, what's your story? Like, wait, I have a talent. And like, no, but what's the story? I mean, because it feels like, I mean, it's TV and it's reality TV, so they have to, whether it's real or contrived, backstories. There's always somebody on there telling that story ahead of time. Nobody just goes out there and is like, oh my gosh, that guy is hilarious, or he or she is amazing at what she does. It's always like, well, here, let's start with the story first. So
yeah, exactly. And I think like it's they know what they're doing. They're really, really great at what that's why they're their number one show for as long as they are. Like they know how to cultivate a good story. And for my situation, fortunately, it wasn't one that was like too much of a reach. I was very honest with my story and my journey up to that moment, and I felt I felt like they also could appreciate the fact that I was being silly and also making jokes that seemed to be going over well by that time. So by that room, you've already auditioned like 2 or 3 times. So by then you're kind of warm. You're kind of like whatever goes. Like by this point, I was just confused. It didn't even feel like a Hail Mary anymore. It just kind of felt like, all right, this is insane. You're sending me to different rooms. Let's just keep doing this, and being able to, kind of improvise based on whatever the moment was, things like that. So, to answer your question, I think I think I was happy with the way that they told my story, because they were able to give a full depiction, or a full person to the jokes, which is kind of nice, because then you really get to know someone with how very limited you are in the screen time that you have, because I think they only give you 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. And meanwhile, it gets weird, because sometimes a magician's act or trick takes 8 minutes or takes 5 minutes, and so it's very it was very interesting. And then when I got through that whole thing, they filmed with me a little bit that day, and then they called me a few days later and said, "We want you to audition for the judges in a month in New Jersey." And I was like, New Jersey, I will not be doing it. Just kidding. And then they said, so yeah, then I did the actual audition. So you have so many auditions before you actually get to audition.
I don't know what happened to your sound, but your sound sounds like you're in a can all of a sudden. But
oh no, really?
I don't know if you need to be closer. Hello.
Is this better? Worse?
We'll muscle through it. So all right. So then you fly out to Jersey for the next step.
Yeah. Is that better now? Yes.
Yes, perfect.
So I flew out to Jersey, and then they filmed with me like a day before, and then they had me audition, and then the golden buzzer thing was a huge surprise. They had explained it kind of before. They had said it's possible that a judge can want to do that and send you directly to the live shows, and for Howie to do that, for me, I was 23 at the time, 24, 23. And I don't know.
Did it carry more weight coming from Howie being the comedian?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And knowing him more personally, since then, he comes with his own baggage and his own things that he deals with, and to really talk with him and learn more about who he has and what he's in his trajectory with his career and everything that he's dealt with, it really kind of spoke to me on a deeper level. It's not just like, oh, here's this judge and here's someone telling you something just for the sake of saying it, but it's someone who actually kind of experiences their own battles. So yeah.
So obviously that just moved you on down the line. So when you get the golden buzzer, you get bypassed for a week or two, right? Is that how that works?
I think so. Yeah, I think you skipped a few weeks. Mm-hmm.
Had any comedian gotten that, or has any other comedian gotten that since?
Well, they've gotten pretty liberal. They've gotten pretty liberal with the golden buzzers lately. I mean, there was I don't even know. It was a season where it was everyone gets one. It was if you didn't, it was oh, you're not that good. You're good.
I thought, because I thought it was just one per judge per season, right? Is that what it was?
Yeah, and then I think
it's not
so.
the case anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't watch the show anymore, but I think that they might have brought on some other judges. They might have brought on some other judges who were guest judges, and then those guys had those people had buzzers, and then then they could bring on their children, and you can grandfather a buzzer. You could donate your buzzer. I don't know how many people had buzzers, but I think that was the first year they were doing it. I think my year, was the year where they were sending people to the lives directly. So that was a huge thing. Also, not just because it wasn't I didn't have the material at the time that could carry me, but things that you really are. That's a huge advantage in they go through elimination rounds and judge cuts and things like that. So you kind of have, I guess, immunity up until some live performances, which is awesome.
Got it. So when you made it, you made it to second place. Were you pissed that you didn't win? Because no comedian has ever won
Right.
America's Got Talent. So did you think that, hey, maybe this curse has been broken?
Yeah, it's crazy. On like every time I advanced in the show, it was a surprise. Like I had no idea. So when it got to the end, and when we were the last two, that was the only time I ever considered or even wanted to win. Was in the moments before they announced the winner. So, yeah, it was something that I no comedians ever won. I don't know if a comedian ever will. There's just too much talent, and like comedy is just something that's so subjective. And there was a little bit of like, here's this guy who is a novelty act. He's a ventriloquist, and he's able to do so many different voices, and he's got a bit of a spectacle to his thing. And when you're a stand-up, you kind of just have yourself. You kind of just have what it is that you say. So it is an interesting thing, especially going into the live shows when you're competing with very talented singers and these people who have like backup dancers and like things. And you just go out there with a microphone and a clever twist, and you hope to win a show. It's a little obtuse. So,
Well, you got that far, so that was. I mean, not too many comedians can say that on that show, and I don't know if that show still carries the weight that it did. I felt like you were in a nice sweet spot as far as the 10th season. Is that where we were on that one? Yeah. I think I don't know how you said that was 5 years ago.
Yeah. So yeah, I think they're at 15 or something. And
yeah, I mean, I don't know what the ratings are, but I have to assume that again, that more people knew kind of your back then. Like, so I mean, so what do you feel like? What doors were open for you that weren't before? That I mean, did you get like just? I mean, obviously, I knew you got new management and such. Was that because of that, or like how did all that springboard forward in your career?
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily that I for why I got new management. I think it became too much, I think, for my manager at the time to try and manage not just the live dates, but not just the live appearance side of it, but to really kind of cultivate a career. Because yes, you can do live shows for as long as you want to do live shows, but you always want to have something else in the queue that you're kind of working on to truly manage someone's career. And that was kind of when that change was. It was around that time, but just a little bit. I think that was 2015, and I change was like 2016. I think is when I kind of switched over, and my agent, who I've been with since then for live appearance, he was also at like a smaller firm that got bought
Gersh,
out.
Right? Is that where you are, Gersh?
I'm in Gersh now, but it was a smaller agency at the time, and he was definitely excited by. He had, I think he had some questions. I don't want to say trepidation, but he had or hesitation, but he had some questions about and concerns about how we were going to kind of move into a different direction. Because for one thing, I wouldn't say I'm by any means a dirty or a filthy comedian, but family friendly America's Got Talent is as family friendly as it gets. So You do experience a wave of people coming to see your shows because of the exposure of that show, and then almost expecting the exact same things that you did in the short amount of time that you got to give
do you have to promote yourself as saying not material not seen on America's Got Talent? I mean,
Yeah,
I mean,
it is
because
that.
I'm sure even to this day, you probably get people coming out going, that's not what we saw on TV, if it is a little bit more risque. I mean, how do you combat that? Do you say that up front in your show, or do you say that before they even get there, like in the promotions, or?
Not really, because I mean, I was doing even all ages shows, which, oh my goodness, I was doing all ages shows at one point, and it's one of those things that you like I said, like I kind of toe the line. Like I mean, I think things have certainly evolved since then. And fortunately, I think while some people might have initially known me from America's Got Talent, like since then, there's a whole other group of people who know me for a number of other things. So
Right.
that is a good spot to be in, and that's this direction that I wanted to move towards when I kind of met with my who's my current agent now, is because there is also a little bit of a stigma around a lot of people who come off of that show because they might be misrepresenting themselves in that way, and they might misrepresent themselves as, say, like someone who is a headliner who has the material to fill that, and then they get there and they only have like 30 minutes, so or less,
Like the college market.
Yes,
It all comes full circle.
It sure does. It sure does. So, but luckily, by that point, I had done some colleges, so I was able to, kind of have the material under my belt, and it's something that I think they don't really prepare you for. At least when I did it, the exposure of that show is so big, and then when it's all done, the drop off is just so steep. You're just kind of like, okay,
Right.
you were in this bubble where people were paying attention to you, and your journey specifically geared towards that show and that competition. And then once it's done, it's kind of like,
it's like you're on the Titanic before it sinks, and then you're like, oh shit,
yes,
gotta get me a life raft quick.
yes, yeah. You're kind of like, what do I do now?
Yeah. So I know. So Sam Comro had that same scenario too, because he was a very edgy comedian, and one of the reasons why he had asked me to represent him in the college market, and I just didn't feel that he could pull that trigger on a consistent basis to kind of work on the cleaner side. So I think he had a big hurdle. The same thing. I mean, and he's a hilarious comedian, but like going out into the market and just exactly what you're saying, like they have this stigma that you're thinking that you're going to be a clean comedian, and he's like, I am not. So
Right.
Do not come out.
Yeah, and I think it's difficult to do that when you're on a show where they can't televise what it is that is exactly that. And like I think, like I said, like I'm not far off from I don't think I'm that far off from what would be I guess a dirty comedian, and I'm not like overt in that way, but there's still things that I think to a lot of people, came as a bit of a surprise, because I'm not Brian Regan, but I'm not Doug Stanhope. So,
right. Well, there's a lot of people that fall in the middle of those two genres right there that you just mentioned. So I do have to ask: are you still friends with Sam?
He and I don't. No, he and I don't talk anymore at all.
What happened there? I mean, you guys were like, thick as thieves in the market and in the college market and such. So
it's actually kind of I don't know, man. It's just it's a thing that's not really talked about. I think that there was I can't really speak for him. But I think that there was the timing of the way things kind of unfolded, could have played into, I guess, the end of whatever kind of petered off for what was a working relationship and friendship and stuff. And there were some things that I had asked him to be a part of, and I don't know if he felt comfortable doing that. And it was just he'd been doing it for longer, and who knows? People can sometimes process things differently, and it's a very So it's the industry is very arbitrary and who gets what and at what time. And, that's about as much as that. There's nothing that I'll say bad about him. And that's the way I feel, regardless of how things went down. So.
Was he on the season before or after you, or how does that work? Or I don't remember.
I think it was. I'm not sure. I don't think it was before me. I think it was.
So it was after. Got it.
Yeah, I think.
Do you feel it was a little bit? I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I mean, as an outsider looking in, I mean, do you think it might have been a little the jealousy aspect? Like, hey, I carried you along, under my wing a little bit, and then you get this, and.
Like I said, I don't know. I can't. Like I don't want to put. You don't put words in my mouth. I don't want to put words in his. So I just.
Right. That makes sense.
Everything.
It does suck though, because I know you guys were close at one time. So.
Yeah, and I wish him the best. I wish him no ill will, and I hope things are going okay, even though this is as crazy of a year as it is. So. Yeah, it's but sometimes that's what happens. I talk to my girlfriend about it sometimes, and you can't really, all you can control is how professional you are, how hard you work, and trying to respect everybody regardless of the way that they view you, because that's just not something you control, regardless of if it's someone you work with or someone who is watching your content or your stand-up. And that's about that everything else is outside of your control. And I truly do struggle with that, because I know I'm a genuine person, and I'm a kind person, and I want to see other people succeed, and I want to support. But at the same time, sometimes that can get taken advantage of, or that people might not feel the same way. It might not be reciprocated. So.
Right. I get it. So. Well, awesome, man. We're going to be wrapping it up here soon. This is the check drop, and this is the part of the show where I kind of let you kind of close it out. If you want to plug something, I'd love to hear your thoughts on where you think comedy is going with COVID. And I do see that you got a lot of dates on your calendar set up. Are you keep pushing dates back, or are you just going to dive right in here shortly?
Yeah. It's kind of cool. Like this, we were talking about this break, and it's been so nice. I was overextending myself in a huge way last year. Last year I was gone I don't know, 250 days a year, something stupid. I did so many cities, and we did something ridiculous, I don't know, 12 shows in Tacoma, and 10 shows in Indy, where I was doing 4 p.m.s and then 7 p.m.s and then 10 p.m.s, and I was doing meet and greets afterwards. And so it's one of those things where I was just I didn't know how to say no to dates and to work and things. And when COVID happened, it was just such a intervention. It was I realized that I wasn't even a whole person. I didn't have hobbies. I didn't have things. And stand up and the industry was my whole world. So it was a blessing. And I think a lot of comedians are realizing that, and hopefully cultivating their own online presence. Fortunately for me, that was kind of where I already directed my attention to a long time ago. So I
Right.
had a lot of support from stuff online anyway. So I know that places are open at half capacity, and that might be how things have to operate for a while. But there are some positives that came from it, in that it's universal. Everything that happened this year is something we all are going through. So,
Right.
because if you're doing an outside show and it feels a little awkward, that's an opportunity for you to, relish in that with the audience and be like, this is weird, but this is what it is that we have to do. I think stand-up will eventually come back, but with anything, humans evolve, so the ideas evolve. My friend Preacher, he's doing a show on Zoom that's it's a completely Zoom show called Connected, which I freaking think is a cool thing. And Schools are now doing things where people have to be outside in order to study, or they're getting more outdoors time. And so in another way, it's just like it's very tragic, everything that's going on, and it's difficult for a lot of people. But at the same time, it's forcing you to be more well-rounded as a human being in what it is that work isn't everything, and being selfish isn't everything either. So.
Right. Well, dude, well said. I couldn't say anything else better than that. So, anything you want to plug before you taking off?
I have a podcast I do every week. It's called Did I Stutter with 2 question marks, and yeah, that's it. Everything else is whatever. It's all just out there, so I don't give a shit.
Well, awesome, man. It was so good chatting with you and catching up with everything. And kudos and all your success, man. I'm proud of
Thanks,
you, man.
Thanks,
Yeah.
buddy. Yeah, I appreciate you having me on. That was it was fun, and wow, what a history we have. It's been such a crazy journey. So.
Well, I wish you luck with everything else in your career. For everybody out there watching and or listening, if you need a comedian for any of it, go to summitcomedy.com. And Drew, we'll see you on the flip side.
You get commission in that, right?
Yeah, of course. All right, I'll send it to you. All right.
Thanks.
Later,
Thanks.
Bye. See ya.